There's a lot of parts to this unit. We'll try and cover as much as we can in 15 minutes or less. So don't forget to also try the questions on the description below, just to test your knowledge. So number one, business and external environment. We operate in an external environment. We consume, we consume food. We need energy, clothing. Now, if we don't consume responsibly, we're gonna endanger ourselves because we will endanger the environment around us. We're gonna pollute too much. We're gonna exploit people elsewhere, and things might not replenish in time. So there's that sense of responsible consumption that comes as a consumer, and responsible production as a business. Businesses, the majority aim to profit maximize. However, that could, to a certain degree, damage them as well, because they might not be able to get the resources they need in the future. So works around this are from Kate Rayworth, and she talks a lot about the circular economy. I recommend you have a look at that. So what else we need to know about business and the external environment? So number one is we need to understand demand. So the demand for goods and services, first of all, there's the association between price and the quantity demanded. So that a high price, a lower quantity will be demanded, whereas by lowering the prices, a higher quantity will be demanded. That's one assumption when we think about demand. Also, we have a different assumption when we look at demand. One where as the price increases, the demand for the product increases. And we can see things like Supreme, for example, the brand of clothing. They sell bricks, crowbars for £100. And the higher the prices, the more people buy them, because there seems to be a resale market. The same thing with shares and investments. So that follows an upward sloping demand curve, because as price increases, the quantity demanded increases. So we have that different types of demand that we can look at from the point of view of a consumer and a business. Then we also need to know about the elasticity of that demand. So for example, if the demand for a product is elastic, then it's very much dependent on the price of the product. So when I go to a corner shop, I buy products. However, if I see that the prices are going up, I might go to a different corner shop. I know it's convenience that I go to my local corner shop, but if the prices are increasing in that corner shop, I might go somewhere else. And that's because there's a lot of substitutes. So if there's a lot of substitutes, the products, services tend to be quite elastic, and the demand curve will be a bit more horizontal, because the demand for the product is price driven. On the other hand, we have products that are inelastic. So no matter what the price change is, the reduction in the demand for it is not more than proportionate to the increasing price. Take into account, if there's a hotel where you go on holiday and it's the only hotel, then no matter how high the prices are, people are still likely going to purchase a room at that hotel. So elastic is a product that is very much price driven, whereas inelastic is a product that is not driven by price, but is driven by other factors. It could be brand loyalty, it could be that it's unique, or that you cannot find substitutes for it, or maybe someone else is paying for that product. So that gives us a bit of a picture around demand. Things that affect demand also gotta bear in mind the price of other products. So maybe a substitute. So if you buy Evian and you see that the price goes up for Evian, you might stop buying Evian and buy Buxton instead, or Smart Water. So demand could be driven by that cross elasticity, or maybe the price of a complement. So if I was thinking of buying a printer, but then I looked at the ink cartridges, and even though the printer itself is cheap, the ink cartridges are quite expensive for that printer. So I decided not to, because the complement is quite expensive for that good. So the price of complements also affect the demand for that product. And that's looking at cross elasticity of demand. The demand for products can also be linked to income. The more money you earn, the more you might buy. And that happens with normal goods. Whereas the higher your income, the less you buy. Those will be inferior goods. So during the time of a boom, when people are experiencing higher levels of income, then luxuries and normal goods tend to experience an increase in sales. On the other hand, during a recession, it's mainly necessities that tend to sell, and not luxury products anymore. Necessities will be goods that are a normal good, but they're inelastic. So meaning that the price, as they're not, they don't change regard. The change in demand for these necessities is not linked to the change in income. So the income might go up or down, yet you still purchase these goods. So this could be your rent. You need shelter. Think about Maslow, your basic necessities, sort of food, shelter. Regardless of the change in income, you'll still need those basic things. So those are the ones that tend to sell. Even now in the pandemic, in the recession, we still have a high demand for food. We still pay rent. Good. So those things drive demand. Then also, when we're looking at business and the external environment, a very good tool to use is pestle. So this is a tool, and sometimes you have the E before the L. It doesn't matter. What matters is what each of these letters represent and how they will affect the business and how they will affect the consumer. So politically, there's a variety of factors that might affect the business politically. This will be regulation in terms of how much they might be able to pollute. This might be regulation because the business you're competing against might be one from the public sector. Or there might be a statutory monopoly, one created by the government, where they don't allow any competitors against this public, this business owned by the government. Let's say defense, right? So here in the UK, defense is public. They're not. It's not private, and that's strategically designed so that no private company is in charge of protecting our territory, but it's nationally. Is publicly protected. We have things like taxes. So politically, it's always popular when taxes go down because that increases disposable income and people tend to purchase more. So politically, lower taxes tend to be quite something that people look forward to. However, with lower taxes means that the government has no funds to then invest in public defense, infrastructure, education. So somehow they need funds to invest. And with public investment, they also create jobs. So something that might affect businesses is a theory called the Laffer curve. So Laffer is an economist, a businessman, and he has this theory that follows two variables. And the Laffer curve goes up and then it goes down. So on this axis, the y-axis, we have the level of income generated from taxes. So this is income from taxes. So this is what the government takes. Income from taxes. Tax. And on this side is the tax rate. And this is called the Laffer curve. Laffer. Businessman, economist, still alive, very popular. And the idea with this curve is that politically, as governments want to raise money, they might put up taxes. Things like income tax. So income tax is the money deducted that's from your wage that the government takes. Now, there's different rates of income tax depending where you live. In some places it's very high, in some places it's low. Like in Dubai it's quite low, whereas in Norway, Sweden is quite high. In the US it's a little bit lower. Here in the UK it's a bit higher. Now his theory said that as the tax rate increases, the government will generate more income from this tax. However, it will reach a point that if the government keeps increasing this tax rate, actually the government will have less income. And the reason being is because people will not have an incentive to work or to be entrepreneurial or to stay longer hours at work, because the extra effort they're putting in is not yielding profits for them because the taxman will just take money away from them. It's like me when I was working in sales. At times I used to have a commission of £2,000 and I was super happy. But then when I saw my paycheck, I would see that £1,000 was taken away from, the taxman just took it away. So next month, that discouraged me from working hard and making those sales because the taxman was going to take, out of my £2,000 of bonus, 1,000 was going to be taken away. Well, so that's the Laffer curve, and that's how it affects businesses and how it motivates employers, entrepreneurs, and employees. Yes, all about disposable income. more disposable income, businesses tend to grow as people are able to spend more. Less disposable income, then businesses tend to shrink as people tend to spend less. So things that will affect this will be interest rates as well. So high interest rates tend to attract savings. So people will not spend, they'll save their money. Plus the cost of borrowing is high because interest rates are high. Whereas low interest rates is people tend to borrow more, people tend to get more credit, so it encourages spending. So the level of interest rates tends to have a direct effect on the level of disposable income that consumers have. So yes, political, economical, very much linked to political still, but economical, we're looking at levels of employment. So if we have high levels of unemployment, then people don't have that money to spend. So businesses are likely to not to sell as many goods, because bear in mind that employees earn money to then spend it, and if they're not employed, then they don't have money to spend. Also, you gotta bear in mind that the minimum wage, for example, depending on the level of that minimum wage, people will have more or less money to spend, and it might be an incentive for people to get a job or not. So economical, we have inflation as well. Inflation is the increase in prices, the average increase in prices. So if there's a high level of inflation, it's difficult to plan ahead. So for example, if you're buying products, raw materials, and the level of inflation is 100%, it's just, the prices keep doubling, then it's very difficult to plan what prices you're going to charge your consumer. The same with consumers. If you have money and you think you can buy something, or you're saving for a house, inflation might just erode the value of your money and you won't be able to buy anything with it. I remember I won a prize for running this marathon as a kid, and I saved it for a month. And originally it was worth like £100, and then after that month it was only worth £10, and it devalued because of a high rate of inflation. So we have unemployment and inflation sort of affecting businesses. Then we have social. So social is basically society around us, how it changes demographically. We have age, gender, ethnicity. So here in London we have a variety of people from different backgrounds. And with that they bring their culture, their clothes, their food. So if you go to central London, you have a range of restaurants where you can go to, and this affects demand, right? So think about quinoa. I don't know if you heard about it. So this is now considered some sort of super food. This used to be very cheap for people in South America, but now because it's considered a superfood, people in South America can't access their own products because it's all being exported at a high price to Europe. So you can see how sort of changes in society does have an effect on products. Also, sort of our skin, we have different types of makeup, different types of fashion depending where you're from, and that might peak, might get some traction. People might demand more of it because they haven't seen it before. So technological, we have the works of someone called Joseph Schumpeter, and he talks about creative destruction. Look at phones, look at the change of information. In the past, before the internet was here, there was a big divide between what people knew, consumers knew, and the seller knew. And people were not able to communicate. So nowadays you can search for information. Before you apply for a job, you can look online at a company. Or if you don't like a company, you can make a comment online, and you can look at forums. You can review the product before you buy it online. So we have this access to information, whereas before we didn't have it. It was all one-sided. People go to the doctor nowadays with all these printouts showing like, oh, what they might have, because they can access all this information. So there's some benefits to it. Now, Joseph Schumpeter focused on something called creative destruction, and basically how technology does create new markets and destroys some markets. Think about sat navs. TomTom used to dominate that market. Nowadays, non-existent, been replaced by Waze, Google Maps. Think about Kodak. They used to dominate the market for cameras. Nowadays, again, very few Kodak shops, and instead we use our phones to take pictures. We don't have to develop our film anymore. We can just see the pictures there on our phone. We just need to buy probably storage online, but we don't go to a particular shop to get our photos developed. And a variety of other things that have changed the way things operate, especially since the introduction of the internet. Lately, for example, we have this a friend of mine, who was struggling in business because he was based in China, and he used to export. He used to be a middleman, and he used to get contacts from the United States and all over the world, get things made in China and send them across. But now with Alibaba, this website, then the markets in the US contact the manufacturers directly. They don't need a middleman. So all these little profits that could have been made in between are eroded away. And this is due to this sort of this information not being asymmetric anymore, but sort of be freely available, and communication helping organize and arrange logistically how products are going to be delivered or where from. Think about Deliveroo. Think how we can order things just by flipping our finger through our phone. So legal. Key legal institutions that we need to know are, we have Ofgem. They regulate anything to do with energy. So if we have EDF, Energy de France, is not doing a good service, and you can complain to Ofgem. We have Ofwat, who regulate the water sector. We have Ofcom, so all to do with communications. Again, if you have problems with your supplier, they are the ones that you have to contact. They mainly protect the market so that there's no monopoly, and so that the consumer does not get exploited. In the same way, the Financial Conduct Authority protects the consumer so that they don't get exploited by financial institutions. And we can see quite a few of them that have been taken out of the market, such as Wonga.com, and some other loan shark companies that used to exploit consumers. Environmental, yes, there's a growing sense of the environment, looking at fair trade products, sustainable procurement, looking at the impact that we are causing on the environment, and businesses are using this to their advantage, and to a certain degree using it as a selling point. So it's important to bear in mind those factors when we're looking at business and the external environment. So it took a little bit longer than I expected. Good luck on your revision, and until next time.